Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your moderator, GBTA Allied Leadership Council President and Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer with BWH Hotel Group, Dorothy Dowling.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning with these amazing, powerful women. And rather than go through the resumes, because they all have very big jobs, I'd like to share with you what I see through my lens as we prepared for this panel. So to my immediate left is Beth Knurk, who is with Avis Budget Group. And how do I characterize Beth? Positive leader. Why? She models positive emotions in a purposeful manner. Her attitude is always more important. Everyone knows that attitude is always more important than aptitude, and difficult times and situations always call for affirmative leaders. And that's how I see Beth.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moving right along, we have Kristen Shevlin, who also has a very large job at Delta Airlines. And I'd like to share with you how I see Kristen. Kristen is a principled leader. She articulates values and makes decisions that are guided by her sense of value. And she consistently lives those values in a transparent way. So I want to share with you a little story as we were preparing for this panel. We were going back and forth, and Kristen shared with me, Dorothy, I have a very dear friend who's going through a very tragic situation right now. So I might not be as available to you as I would like to be over the next week, because I need to be there for her. That to me is everything about being a principled leader, and I'm so glad to know you.
Thank you.
So to my very far left, we have Shi Young from American Express BCD. And I just got to know Shi Young through this process. And the way I characterize her, she is a disciplined advocate. She is a mastery of her thoughts. It's clear that she focuses on what's important, and she communicates with a clarity that I was dazzled by. So these are the powerful women that are going to speak with you, and my introduction of them. So shall we get started? So the first question I'd like to start with, and Beth, I'd like to start with you if I may, is sharing your leadership path and what that journey looked like.
First of all, Dorothy, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. So my career path is a little unique, because I didn't start in sales. I started in operations for a very small, privately held company. And I wish I could sit here before all of you and tell you I had this beautiful, linear corporate ladder that I climbed, but it was more like a jungle gym than a ladder. Because what happened, being in a small company, you had to have your foot in sales and a handle on finance, and you take one step back and 2 steps forward. So that little company got bought by our largest publicly traded competitor. And what happened post-acquisition was there was a national account sales role open. I was nowhere near qualified. I took a leap of faith, and them on me. And what I realized is having that operational background, it made me a better seller. And it made me a better seller because I had this empathy for the efficiencies and flows and a P&L sheet and the burdens and challenges all those operators had to do every day. So I never overpromised, and I never underdelivered. And that sits with me still today. And I've been in sales ever since.
That's an amazing story for a sales leader. Yeah. Kristen, how about you? Could you share your leadership path with us?
I would, and I didn't realize we had so much in common. So I always say I had a haphazard career path because I actually started in operations. And my career was built around, Kristen, go fix it, through the eyes of the customer. And so anytime that there was an opportunity where we had customer impact, they'd say, can you move across the country and go set up a new operation and put it through the eyes of the customer and go fix it? And so I bounced around the entire organization, solving problems, leading change, and kind of driving everything through the eyes of the customer. And through one of those transitions, I got the opportunity to meet Steve Sear, who's the head of sales at the time, and he asked me at the merger, why don't you move into sales? And my first answer, which I recommend nobody follow, was no. Why would I move to sales? I know nothing about sales. I'm an operation fix-it person. And he said, great, but you're a customer advocate, and that's what I need in sales. And I'm grateful for the fact that he took the time to really reach out and find a different path, and it's been a fantastic career ever since.
So, our communicator, Xi Young, can you tell us your leadership path?
Thank you so much, Dorothy. So I started my career in corporate law. A long time ago when I was a legal assistant, even before I went to law school, I was working at a New York City corporate law firm. And there was a woman there, a senior lawyer. She was smart, tough, and confident. And I had never seen anyone like her. And I thought, wow, I could be her. And then I went to law school, worked at a corporate law firm. And later, when I had the opportunity to go in-house, I moved to a Fortune 500 company that happened to have a female CEO. And now she was inspirational, motivational, and powerful, but elegant. And then my boss was a male boss, and he was a wonderful boss. I learned so much from him. But when he retired, they hired a female to replace him. Now, she was very different from my previous boss. She was more casual and collaborative, but persuasive, and she was able to get anyone to come over and see her side of the argument. And the reason why I share the story of some of the role models that I grew up with as part of my leadership path is because I know how incredibly lucky I was that I was able to be close to these female leaders, to be able to visualize what female leadership is about, close hand, watch them and learn from them. And I know still a lot of women actually do it alone, and they're oftentimes the only woman in the room. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic of inspiring more female leaders to take on leadership roles, because I think it's so important for the other young women and girls out there that they can visualize what an authentic female leader looks like in the real world.
So when Xi Young told me that story, I would tell you it touched my soul, because I have the absolute opposite story in my life. I have never had a woman boss. And I have never worked in an organization that has a lot of women in very significant leadership roles. So it is amazing to hear her story and how that transformed her journey forward. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, following along that question, is there a mentor or boss, Kristen, that you would call out in terms of paving the way forward? I know you said someone convinced you in terms of taking on this role, but
I would. So I grew up, I was not the kid who colored in the lines. Kind of ties to the fix-it part of it. And I had a boss who helped me really harness that kind of innovation, that creativity and stepping out of the box, but also how to navigate that within your traditional corporate environment. And through his mentorship, his feedback, and even more than anything else, he gave me a seat at the table and allowed me to really kind of take that vision and that strategy to new levels. He actually helped guide me through what could have been a very difficult obstacle, because at the time I was coming up through, being a real big change agent and really being outside of the box wasn't always the norm. And so he allowed me to really harness that personality and who I was, but he helped me adapt that in the environment.
Yeah, that's great.
It made a big difference in my career.
Xi Young, would you like to elaborate a little bit on your mentors?
Yes, so it's a bit of a continuation, but the female general counsel I spoke of earlier, she was the one that actually gave me my first management position promotion. But when I thought I was ready and I went to her and I said I wanted to be a vice president, she didn't give it to me right away. Instead, she worked with me to put together a plan, to get more executive exposure to the regional CEO, work more directly with him and the rest of his leadership team, to gain his trust, and to expand my role to be an advisor, a trusted advisor to him. So that when ultimately she did put me up for promotion a year later, he was my greatest advocate and supporter. And that also meant now he was an ally. So he was vested and wanted to make sure that I was successful in my job. And I share this story because this is something that you can do yourselves as well. Everyone can be their own advocate.
Thank you, Xi Young. Beth, you told me a very interesting story about networking, and I know I had an old boss many years ago that said 10% of your time should be spent in networking. And I love the story that you shared with me. Could you share it with the audience as a whole?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in networking. I look at it like a family tree, right? You've got those direct lines, and then you got some crazy cousins out here, maybe second, third removed. They'll take your call, but not as your direct lines. And I think the key to impactful networking is to be a giver more than a taker. Now, I'd like you to all take a moment and think of the people in your network that always and only call you for favors. We've all got those, right? So the giving part, I think you do that more, and you don't expect anything in return, and that establishes a great network. So the story I shared with Dorothy that I'm happy to share with all of you is I was in pharmaceutical sales for 20 years, specifically, wait for it, geriatric pharmaceutical sales. Very sexy industry, and I moved to that industry over to even sexier car rental. And how that happened was a networking opportunity. So when I was at that pharmaceutical company, there was a consultant, a partner at a consultant firm that was there for 3 years for a full potential program. We became friends because we both lived in the same hotel by the headquarters. For 3 years, we would have dinner, a glass of wine, talk about our husbands, and certainly talk about work. Well, she left me, went on to bigger, better projects, and all of this change started happening. My one fear was the CFO was becoming the CEO, was actuality. And this particular CFO was a four-corner of a spreadsheet kind of guy. The things that we were selling didn't really have the biggest return. It wasn't a real big contributor to our balance sheet. So I went to my husband, who's a veterinarian, and I said, "Hon, I want to talk to you about work." He glazed over. I think I lost him at hello. And I remembered my friend. I'm like, oh, she'll know. Not only the players, the cast of characters, the politics, the dynamics. So I called her with my concern. She said, "Get your resume together." And I got, oh, geez, Molly, it's been 20 years. I really do think I still have something from high school on there when I was a cashier at a grocery store. She's like, "Girl, dust that thing off and resurrect it. It's time." So I did, right? 2 days later, she calls me. She goes, Beth, I can't believe I never thought of this. I'm like, what? She goes, "I'm doing some consultant work at Avis. I worked all over this globe. It's one of the best cultures I've ever seen, and you'd fit right in. But you got to hurry. They're pretty hot on a candidate for the head of sales." I flew over, loved the senior leadership team, loved the team I got to meet, and I took the job. And I have her to thank. She's still a dear friend, and I call her my corporate angel, and I'm sitting here today because of her.
Yay.
Thank you.
Another amazing story. So Kristen, you and I talked about how leadership is rarely black and white. And this morning we both saw an article that came out from Deloitte about ambiguity and how we all have to live within ambiguity or ambiguous situations. So how do you lead your team? How do you coach and mentor and really help everyone navigate all of those situations where the playbooks aren't defined and we're figuring it out as we go?
I think you hit it dead on. Change and ambiguity is the new business imperative. And I think the key is to really embrace your team and help them understand that they have to have a plan as much as they can to kind of figure out what that impact would be if there is going to be a change. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of impact analysis, but the biggest thing you have to do is really give them a lot of trust and guidance, but also the leverage to really think out of the box and go and do it. The more that they have the flexibility to kind of adjust their sales and fail a little bit and then kind of recognize that and support them, really makes a big difference. The hardest part is a lot of times people get really close into a box and they want to lead that way, but you have to allow them the levity and the flexibility to be able to move the change and support them through it. It's not an easy thing to do because a lot of people are really driven by success, but you actually just have to help guide them and give them the leverage to do it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's move on to advice. And Sian, I'd like to start with you. If there was a piece of advice you wish someone had given you at the beginning of your career, what would you offer to the audience?
Yes, so at the beginning of my career, I thought if I worked really, really hard and everyone liked me, I would be successful. And I think a good work ethic and performance is essential. But there came a time in my career when it wasn't enough. To be a leader and to be an executive, I needed additional skill sets in my toolkit. So what I'll tell you are 3 things. 1, you need to know what you want, know your goals, and be able to say it. The second thing is, similar to what you said, you need to create a strong support system around you. And that includes building allies at work. These are the people that support you and advocate for you, but also a support network of friends, colleagues, and peers and loved ones. These are the people that give you great advice and keep you sane. And then third, last but not least, you need to be able to build and inspire a high-performing team.
Thank you. Wonderful advice. Beth, what would you offer?
Advice I wish I got? So the advice I wish I got with my younger self was to work on my poker face. Right, Kristen?
Yep, that would be the same advice I'd give.
So it kind of what you see is what you get. So in a meeting, if I disagree with it, you probably know it before I can even say I disagree with it. So I'm a work in progress, and I'm still working on that. The other piece of advice I wish I had was don't let working mom guilt consume you. Keep things in perspective, keep things balanced, and your kids will turn out okay. So I wish I had that earlier on.
Also great advice. Kristen, the poker face, I know you own it too.
She stole the poker face. I think the other piece would be to, if I could go back early on, to learn languages. If you really think about how global the network is, we don't take enough advantage of being able to really communicate within the different regions of the world. And I would have done that because I think that really brings relationships closer. And anything in business, it first comes down to those relationships. And then I would also tell everybody, time balance. Everybody tends to work really, really hard in your first 10 or so years. Find that right balance early on, because as a leader, you set the stage. And if you don't do that, people are going to burn out and leave you as a leader. So get that set up early in your career and make sure that there's a balance.
Thank you, Kristen. So, Xinyan, I'd like to go back to you again. There's a lot of leaders and emerging leaders in this audience. So if you had one thing that you would like to ask of everyone in this audience, what would that be?
So when I was having dinner yesterday with a lot of our clients as well, I noticed that there are a lot of women in the travel industry, which is just amazing. It means you have just a tremendous pipeline of talent in the industry. And there are so many studies out there that tell you and prove evidence that a gender-balanced team actually produces superior results, whether it's stock price, profitability, or earnings. And one of the most recent ones is actually the Harvard study of women on boards. So they took all the Fortune 500 companies, ranked them by the number of female board members they had. And the top quartile, so the top 125, actually outperformed the rest by 42% better return on sales. And then also, if you look at the companies that got knocked off the Fortune 1000 index, more than 55% of them actually had 0 women on the board, or just 1. So if you actually understand and believe these studies, what I would ask you as leaders to do is go back and take a look at your teams. Look at the bench strength below them, and look at the development opportunities that you're creating in your succession plan. And if you're not at gender parity, that's okay. But put together targets and goals to get there. And when I started at American Express Global Business Travel, I was able to design my team with these principles in mind because I was starting with a clean slate. But what I also do is I encourage my colleagues to always look across different projects that they're running, especially the ones that give you a lot of great on-the-job training and experience. Those are development opportunities, as well as visibility and executive exposure. Those are the ones where you want to make sure that you have a gender-balanced team, so everyone on your team is getting the opportunity for development.
Thank you, Sina. Very well said. Beth?
What?
What would you say about that? I'm sorry, I'm moving along here. As a senior leader, excuse me, thank you, I need that cue. As a senior leader, how do you choose to inspire and mentor women in your organization in order for them to achieve more of their potential?
I think the best way is to, and it sounds kind of hokey, but it's the truth, lead by example and be your authentic self. And that includes, and you can ask my team that I have a lot of love for, that vulnerability that you show and sharing your insecurities and how you've overcome them actually can inspire people and show that you're actually human. And if you're human, you're relatable. And that humility shows you have no ego. So I'm big on being vulnerable and sharing the insecurities that we've overcome. I think that helps a lot.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah.
How about you, Kristen?
I would say open the door and bring them along with you. I think exposure and opportunities, if you could uplift any of your personnel and take them with you and give them those opportunities, is going to be incredibly helpful. The other piece I would say is make yourself really available. A lot of times people will reach out and they'll say, yes, I'll get together with you, but they don't take the time to do that. And availability to really have open, honest conversations, provide them with the insights that you know and the experience that you have, and really lead yourself to be able to help mentor them is a big deal. But a lot of times we say we're going to do it and then we don't follow through on that. So it's lift them up, give them the exposure, bring them to the meeting, but it's really give your time more than anything else.
Also great advice. Seung.
So I have a talented group of men and women under me, and I think it's my job to bring out the best in all of them. And sometimes you need to work a little bit harder with them on communication. Because I see especially a lot of young, talented people that say, I want the authority to execute my vision. But they don't know how to say. They don't know what that means in the corporate world is, I want a boss. I want to be the boss. I want to be promoted. In fact, sometimes when you ask them, like, oh, that sounds like you actually want to be the CFO one day, they'll say, oh, no, that's not what I want. So I like working with them on their communication so they can actually understand and see what their full potential is. So they're able to actually say what they want and just go for it. And I think that's just really rewarding.
Yeah, thank you, Shi-Young. Okay, so we're coming up onto the last question, lightning round. All of the women that are sitting before you are significant investors in Winnet from both the time and their companies in terms of being a founding partner. Beth, can you tell us in a few words why Avis Budget is so committed to Winnet and why you are so personally committed to Winnet?
Sure, yeah. Avis is a proud sponsor of Winnet, and we look at it as an inspirational platform to share our evolution of diversity and inclusion, and even better and more importantly, it gives us an opportunity to find out from other programs and colleagues through the industry on how we continuously can advance and enhance it.
Thank you. Kristen?
It's a business imperative, and it's one of the unique platforms in this industry that really open the door and get that network going across the marketplace. So we really find that it's a great opportunity from education and networking for our teams.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And Shi-Young?
So we love Winnet because we are absolutely committed, and you heard me talk about it, to developing and inspiring more female leaders for the travel industry. I think it's just a wonderful thing, and it's a great partnership.
Thank you. So I would like to close and share with you why I am such a passionate supporter of Winnet. I told you that I've never had a woman boss. I have a lot of women team leaders that are on my team. But I believe relationships are the currency of life. These are amazing women that I have come to know so much better through my partnership and investment in Winnet. So I would say to you, would you not like to have a lot of these women in your network? I hope you will join, participate, and continue to advocate for gender diversity within your own organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.